Well, let's travel down our next rabbit hole, everyone. Hi, it's the Four Gun Guy, and today we're going to talk about annealing our brass. Now, I've done some videos on my whole process, and in that process, I showed you that I used the Annealeez annealer to anneal my brass. Well, I sold that, and I went with the bench source annealer. And that's what I want to focus on today, but there's going to be a little journey discussion included as well. So what I thought we'd cover here is let's look at the setup of the bench source. Let's look at a functional review. So I'll just show just a few cases being annealed and some things that I kind of changed on it to help that annealing go a little better. But then I want to talk about a comparison between the bench source and the Annealeez, and final thoughts are going to be around, with the price difference, is the bench source, that big of an upgrade over something like the Annealeez to justify the cost. So if you're ready to go, let's get to it. All right, well, let's start with a functional review here. Now, construction-wise, this thing's built like a tank. It's very well built. All the construction is aluminum. The plate here is very strong. I mean, that flame gets really close to it. And remember, I've changed to a 6BRA cartridge. So my case now is very, very small, right? I've gone from a 6.5 Creedmoor to a much smaller, shorter case. And we're going to talk about that's one of the issues or challenges that you may have with this annealer. These smaller cases are shorter. You're going to have to adjust these flames. But let's talk about what comes with this thing. So you get the annealing machine itself. You get the clamps, these posts, the power control, and all of that. You do not get any torches or hoses or anything. So let's talk about what you're going to want to do right out of the gate. You're going to want to get two pretty good torches. Now I got these off of, I think I got these at Home Depot. And here's what I like about these. They have, of course they all do, but these have the valve right up here at the torch. They're really good propane torches. Then I bought a 5-foot propane hose from Amazon. I'll put all this up there. I'll tell you the thing I like about these. These also have a valve on them. So they have a valve that after you screw it into the propane tank, you have a valve there and a valve here. Don't ask me why I like that. I just like having that double kind of safety feature. So those are the two major things you're going to want to get. Now, I'm going to take the camera off the stand or bring it over here, and I'm going to show you some things that you're going to want to do and you're going to have to do to make this thing actually operate properly, especially with these short cases. And now I'm going to rant for about 15 seconds. If you looked at some of my videos on my Voodoo 22, some of the other equipment that I've bought, and again, I'm paying all my own money for this stuff. No one's giving this to me. I'm going to rant a little bit about, I get your product, I pay, by the time I'm done with this, I'm up to $800 for this annealer, but I still have to make changes to your product design to make it actually work. So there's my rant, that's all I'm going to say. Now let's get into what those changes were. Okay, the first minor change, but it was pretty annoying. So look, I'm using these little cake baking pans to catch the brass because it doesn't come with anything. And they work really well. And by the way, if you're going to do this, get two of them so they're kind of insulated. So this one's insulated. But here's the thing. As the brass comes through here, and you don't have this little gizmo that I created, I'll show you what this is. As the brass comes through here, It can hit the lip here, or the other thing I don't like is it just drops directly in. I'm telling you why I don't care for this. That's a decent drop right there. And you just heated this brass up to 700 degrees. It's still malleable. And as it drops in here and bangs around with other brass, you could conceivably, you know, hurt the neck there. That's just my opinion. But, so what I did is I took these are straps, lumber straps that you can use to nail or connect pieces of lumber with, 2 pieces of lumber with. I put some Velcro on one side, I put a piece of Velcro there. I stick this right here. And now when it drops, it's kind of got a little lip there. And I can actually bring this out even more. And it doesn't look like much, but I'm just telling you, to me, it kind of broke the fall a little bit. And also without this, I did have some cases bounce off the rim here. They'd come down, hit the rim, and then bounce off. And now you've got a very hot piece of brass, either on a mat here, dropping on your carpet, on your floor, or your hardwood, on your table. So I just built this to be very careful. Now let's look at one of the major issues that I had with this annealer. Well, now we're looking at one of the biggest challenges that I had with this thing. And number one, again, I'm annealing very short brass. I get that, right? So that's the BRA brass. And if I look at my 6.5 Creedmoor brass, you can see the height difference here, right? I mean, there's a pretty good height difference. But even if I'm trying to anneal my 6.5 brass, this taller case, look at what I had to do here. Look at the washers. I had to put washers. I had to put separators, because if you don't, then all of the, and you see that I have my my torch on its side, so I can have some space here to get it down that low. This is a major pain in the neck, guys. I'm just telling you. You may be sitting there saying, hey, you just had to throw some washers on there. Why do I have to throw washers on there? Okay, this is my whole point. Look, bench source, you're $700 for your machine. Do me a favor, throw $3 worth of washers in here that I can build the spacing out that I need to build out, and I don't have to go out to my garage or then make a run up to Home Depot to fix this stuff. So that was the biggest thing that I had there. As far as the annealing itself, I would almost, and I may do this, I would almost go down to a single torch. I think the dual torch setup here is just really nuking that neck. And it's hard to get the 2 torches synced up on that piece of brass. So if I was going to, I'll just spill the beans right here. If I was going to keep the bench source, which I'm not, because I got my hands on an amp annealer, which I've always been wanting, but they just haven't been available. But if I was going to keep the bench source, I would go down to a single torch. So when we do the cost comparison, we'll talk about that, right? I have 2 torches in the cost comparison, but we'll talk about if you just took 1 torch out. And then that kind of skews the comparison between this and the Annealeez. So let's talk about the functionality now and watch this thing in action. Okay, I've got it set up. Now, I am going to tell you that, number one, I have windows open, doors open. You want to be well ventilated if you're going to do it in here. I don't have any gunpowder around anywhere. This is further out from the back here than you think it is, so it's not close to the plastic items or anything else. I've got the 2 flames meeting right in the center of that hole, and I'm going to drop a case in there. And I still have to do some adjusting, so this is just some scrap brass I had. But you're going to see how this works. When the case gets in there, I'm annealing right where the shoulder meets the neck. That's where I'm annealing. And you just want that brass, when it comes out of that flame, you'll just see it glowing. That's what you want. You want to reach that glow. And then it's going to drop down into the pan, and then we're going to be done annealing. The process is very, very smooth, right? I've got this set to, I think, about 6.5 seconds, maybe 7 seconds in there. But now we're going to talk about some things that kind of, it's not bad, it's just you're going to have to get used to it, right? On my Annealeez, I could load 100 cases and just have it sitting over here, and I could be doing something else right next to it. I never left the room or anything like that. But with this, I have to stand here and keep, loading the brass in the holes. Now, it seems, okay, I'm nitpicking, but I'm just telling you that's one of the differences there, right? Between this and the Annealeez. And then, as I said before, I think what I would do, if you're going to get one of these, and again, guys, this is a really good product. I'm not saying anything wrong about it. It's just those couple little things that kind of bugged me about having to set it up. But once you get this set up, you should be good to go. Now, I'm going to talk about another little negative, and that is that once you set it up and once you've got it annealing what you're going to anneal, and you start taking it apart, look at that, see? Nothing stays in place. So the next time you set this up, don't just fire up those flames and start running your brass through it. You've got to make sure that these things are now, synced up, they're in the center, and so the way they have this, how you set this thing, just doesn't stay set. So again, just a little thing. But again, the little things kind of add up sometimes. All right, well, let's kind of do a comparison here. We just saw this in action. And if I was going to keep this bench source annealer, I would go down to a single torch and a single tank. I think 2 torches, I just don't think they're necessary for this. Okay, so that would save you about $50 right there, just using 1 torch and one hose. Now, if you look at the Annealeez, let's take a look at that. So here it is. You see it's running. You see that I can load brass in this bin here, and that it'll automatically feed it down through the machine, anneal it, drop it into the bin at the bottom. The good thing about that is I can load 100 rounds or 100 cases in here while I do something else. So maybe I'm resizing the brass that I just annealed and then lubed. And while I'm doing that, I can run this batch of 100 off to the side, and I don't have to keep refilling it like I do have to do the bench source. So there's one thing. Other than that, there is no difference between these two. This is a very well-built machine. Do not get me wrong. But how do I adjust the amount of annealing that happens on the bench source? Well, there's a dial on the side, and you turn it, and you either keep the case in there longer or you keep the case in there shorter. On the Annealeez, there's a time up and down adjustment that does the same thing. The case drops in, I increase the time, I decrease the time that it's in the flame until I get the right annealing that I want on the case. So from that respect, guys, they're exactly the same type of equipment. They're both flame annealers. Let's look at the cost difference. Cost difference here is about twice as much for the bench source as the Annealeez. Okay, what did I just say? They both do the exact same thing. in basically the exact same way. The bench source goes round and round this way, and the Annealeez goes round and round this way. Good thing with the Annealeez, I can load the bin up. Here, I'm kind of having to pay attention to keep the cases coming into to the flame. Let's talk about different size cases. Remember, I have my 6BRA. I also had the 6.5 Creedmoor. The adjustment on this in that respect, I think is pretty good, right? All I'm doing then is adjusting the height of the flames here with these two adjustments. They're kind of tricky, but it works. With the Annealeez, you may be changing out the wheels on the Annealeez, so you'll get a different wheel kit. Now, changing out the wheels takes you 1 minute. You unscrew 2 screws, you put the new wheels on. The wheels vary in thickness, so they can accommodate the shorter cases or the longer cases. So that takes about a minute. So I would say that you're probably talking close to the same amount of time to make that adjustment between different case sizes. Well, okay, let's go ahead and get to final thoughts. Let's talk about final thoughts here. So we looked at bench source, the functionality of it, some of the things that I had to do to it. Then I looked at a comparison between this and the Annealeez, had a little discussion about that. As I said in the beginning of the video, I am selling this. I'm getting an amp induction annealer because one came available, and it's really what I've wanted. My buddy Jeff, I'm going to shout out to Jeff again. You know, when Jeff got his, he said, just stop doing all this other stuff, get an amp. If you can't get an amp, if the amp is outside your budget, then you're talking about this or the Annealeez, or I think there's another 1 or 2 out there that's in these price ranges. I talked about the fact that if I were keeping this, I would go down to a single torch. And once you make that decision, then to me, there's no difference between this and the Annealeez. This goes around this way, Annealeez goes around that way. I adjust the time that the case is in the flame here with a little knob on the side that it either keeps it in the flame longer or shorter until I get the right annealing. On the Annealeez, it's the same thing. I have an up and down arrow that I increase or decrease the time that the case is going to spend in the flame. And then once I've set that, I've done thousands of cases on my old Annealeez, and I never had to touch that setting. Just like I would never have to touch the setting on this, I'm sure, once I set it. We looked at the cost between the two. So here's where my thoughts are. If I'm looking at cost, this is twice as much as the Annealeez. I'd go with the Annealeez. I would go back to the Annealeez. If I couldn't afford an amp, I would probably still sell the bench source here, and I would go back to the Annealeez. For one big reason, I can load that bin up with 100 cases, and I can do something else in here while they're running through that thing. So anyway, those are just my final thoughts. If you do want the 2-flame setup, then I think the bench source is the way to go. As I said, the construction on this is phenomenal. It's very well built. And if you want 2 flames, I'd say this all day long. Well, hey everyone, thanks for watching. And when I do get that amp in, I'll do a review on that. I've got some other things coming up as well. So thanks again. And until next time, shoot straight.